Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Pots are important for our plants, especially orchids. If we choose the wrong pot, the orchid will not grow well. An incorrect container could cause various diseases, pests, and in severe cases, it may cause root rot. So in this video, we will first talk about the packaging of some plants on the market, including some orchids, their problems, and what to do when we buy such flowers. Then we will talk about the various pots that are suitable for growing orchids. Finally, we will introduce some other ways in which we can grow orchids aside from pots. If you like this video, please thumbs up, leave a comment, and share it with more flower enthusiasts. Our channel mainly focuses on the cultivation of various flowers. I also occasionally post some handicraft and pet videos. If you are interested in these and have not subscribed to my channel yet, please subscribe and click the notification bell next to the subscribe button. This will allow you to receive notifications whenever I upload a video. Let's talk about the packaging of some plants on the market. I have found some plants for sale which were in a plastic pot that was wrapped in a layer of wax paper, and it was very tightly wrapped. When a plant is tightly packed like this, the root system of the plant cannot breathe, and the aeration is relatively poor. The second problem posed by this is that watering is difficult to control in this situation. If you water too much, the excess water will pool within the paper shell and suffocate the roots. I think that vendors use these sorts of paper packaging mainly for aesthetic purposes. The packaging drives sales, but after we buy plants packaged like this, we must throw away the paper or foil covering once we get home, because we are mainly looking to grow a good plant, and that kind of packaging doesn't actually help its growth at all. On the contrary, it's actually detrimental. We just throw the paper away and leave the plastic flower pot exposed. Some orchids are also grown in a plastic pot, which are then placed in ceramic pots. The airtightness of that kind of package is particularly good, resulting in poor airflow. We all know that orchids need good ventilation, so that kind of packaging is bad for orchids. After we buy orchids packaged like that, we take them out in the same way. If you don't think that plastic pots look good, you can use larger ceramic pots to sit them in. Just ensure that it isn't a tight fit so that the orchid can still breathe. This method is only recommended for short-term use while orchids are in bloom. For the long-term maintenance of orchids, it is recommended to choose one of the potting options which are suitable for the growth of orchids. The most common is the plastic flower pot. This is a Brassia hybrid, which we just bought some time ago. Most sellers will use these plastic pots to grow orchids because plastic flower pots are cheap, light, and low cost. If you want to increase breathability, we can choose this pot. There are holes around and at the bottom of this pot, and therefore the ventilation of this pot is much better. Here is a big one. You can have a look. Of course, if you are in an area with dry climate, like California or Arizona, this kind of flower pot with only holes at the bottom could be more suitable. Another type of plastic pot is transparent. Its advantage is that you can directly observe the state of the roots. This is a Phalaenopsis. Phalaenopsis roots are white when dry. If the root is still moist, it is green. We can more easily judge when to water based on the color of the roots with a clear pot. After I bind this, in order to increase its breathability, I used scissors to poke a few holes around the pot. In general, Plastic flower pots are cheap. One disadvantage is that plastic flower pots are not very beautiful, and many people may not like plastic. The second disadvantage is that plastic flower pots are relatively light and flimsy. If your plant is relatively large and top-heavy, if you accidentally bump it, the whole orchid could fall down. Another pot used for growing orchids is this terracotta pot. The air permeability of the pottery pot is better and it looks better than the plastic pot. It's also heavy, so you don't have to worry about knocking it over when you touch it. It's a little more expensive than plastic pots, but it's not going to break the bank. Such a small clay pot may cost about $3 or $4. There are also different flower pot designs for us to choose from. This is another terracotta pot. The side of this pot has holes, and its air permeability is better than the previous one. We grow orchids in clay pots with the option of matching drainage saucers. This way, the planting looks better and the ventilation is better. A third type of pot used to grow orchids is slightly more expensive. This is the ceramic flower pot. This ceramic pot is specially used for growing orchids. There are holes around the ceramic basin, and its ventilation is particularly good. This flower pot is also beautiful. The only downside is that it's a little more expensive. For most orchids, I would recommend choosing from among the aforementioned 3 pots for planting. Individual orchids, however, can have special requirements such as this Zygonesia orchid. This orchid is growing in a ceramic pot. Its basin walls are free of holes. This might be surprising. This orchid is a cross between a Zygopetalum and Agonesia cyanae, though it takes more after the latter when it comes to cultural requirements. Agonesia cyanae grows in the lowlands along the Amazon River, and when the river swells during the monsoon, these orchids can be submerged for weeks. Because of this, it is very resilient to water levels, which will kill other orchids. When I potted this orchid, the media included some normal garden soil, which is usually a big no-no with orchids. Planting in this pot is no problem, since it prefers to be wet. It doesn't need to be as breathable. When choosing a flower pot, in addition to choosing the right type, we also have to make sure that it is the right size. When we are changing pots, the new pot cannot be too large. As long as the pot is slightly larger than the orchid's roots, it will do. If you choose a relatively large flower pot, the air permeability of the entire root system is poor. Watering is difficult to control, and root rot becomes more of a problem. Finally, let's look at other methods which you can use to grow orchids. I prefer this method because with this method you seldom have to worry about root rot. In nature, most orchids are attached to large trees and their roots are exposed to the air as they grow. Using mounds, we can also simulate a natural epiphytic growth environment. This orchid grows on wood. The entire root system is attached to this block and grows along it. This is a flat, simple piece of wood. We could also use bark segments like this one. This is a cattleya, and its roots have covered this slab of cork bark. Such bark comes from cork trees, which are grown in countries like Portugal and Spain. When the cork is collected, the bark is peeled off directly from the tree, and then cut into pieces. One of the uses of this cork is mounting orchids, but corks for sealing wine bottles are also punched from sheets of this bark. This is a renewable resource, as these ancient trees will regrow their bark within 9 years, making this an environmentally friendly option. And orchids also prefer this type of bark. Let's look at another one. This is Phalaenopsis. Some time ago, because I had too many orchids at home, and Phalaenopsis orchids are relatively common, not so rare, and not as precious as other orchids, I neglected this one a bit. There were also some pests and disease on the orchids at that time. When I found them, I didn't deal with them in time because we were too busy. Later, when I dealt with this orchid, I found that the roots were rotten and that there was no intact root system. Because I was worried that it would rot again, I just tried to fix this Phalaenopsis on this bark. When I fixed it, I put some moss around the roots. Moss can absorb water and moisturize. This Phalaenopsis is usually watered once a day. I will spray its entire foliage and its roots with water. These old leaves are wrinkled and dehydrated, but here a new leaf has grown, which is not bad. A new root has grown here as well, which is also very good. So this orchid has been rescued. Orchids that can be fixed on bark blocks include Camellia, Dendrobium, Phalaenopsis, Tolumnia, and Oncidium. In addition to the bark block, we can also use this branch. This is a Camellia. You can see that its roots are all wrapped around this branch, and the overall growth is very good. We basically spray water once a day. In addition to bark pieces, we can also use some wooden baskets. Like this, for example. This orchid is a Camellia hybrid. This orchid was originally planted in a clay pot. Some time ago, we repotted. After changing the pot, a few months later, root rot appeared and spread to the rhizomes. Here, let me briefly explain how to identify rotten roots. If you notice an orchid's leaves turning yellow or its rhizomes black, root rot is likely. At this point, we need to pull it out and take a look at its roots. Cut off all the yellow and black leaves and branches, as well as all the rotten roots. After cutting it out, you can look at the rest of it that is intact. Intact places should be green. Sterilize your cutting tool in between each cut with isopropyl alcohol. After we dealt with it at that time, I was more worried that if we replanted in a clay pot, it might rot the roots again. So I put it directly in this wooden basket and its roots are exposed to the air to grow. You don't have to worry about root rot at all. When planting, I put some bark pieces, stones, and wine corks in the basket to hold the orchid in place. So here is a tip. If you have a glass of wine with dinner, please save the corks. The corks from the bottle can be used to grow orchids. This orchid has been growing in the basket for a week now. It has grown a lot of new roots, and there is a new pseudobulb growing here. I think this method works well. Generally, Vanda and Rhincostylus orchids are planted in this wooden basket because these orchids grow with their roots dangling in the air. Its roots will grow around the basket. Let's check out this Vanda orchid. You see, these virgin ones are some new roots. When we use this wooden basket, you can put some coconut fibers or some moss, bark pieces, etc. in it. You can also use no medium, that is not a problem. Finally, let's look at growing orchids on coconut husks. Coconut husks can also be used to grow orchids. After you eat the coconut, the shell fragments are great as a growing container. Drill several holes under the coconut shell to allow it to drain. This is a Dendrobium lodgicii. When planting, we use some stones, bark chunks, and some moss mixed together. This is a camellia which has been blooming recently. The lilac-colored flowers are pretty. This camellia root system is very healthy, and its roots have grown to the outside of the shell. When we use bark or wooden basket to grow orchids, because its roots are exposed to the air, so the humidity of the air should be kept above 50% as much as possible. If the ambient humidity is too low, it may be necessary to spray twice a day. The humidity in our sunroom is usually between 70 and 80%, and we spray with water once a day currently. In winter, when the temperature is low, spray water once every 2 days. During the growing season, spray once a day. In summer, when the temperature is high, spray water twice a day. Generally, when spraying water, it is best in the morning before the sun directly hits the orchid. For orchids growing in coconut husk, because it has media in it, we usually water every 2 or 3 days. It is also especially important with mounted orchids to use pure water with very low dissolved solids. This means that hard tap water is very dangerous to these orchids. If the water is lying on and evaporates just on the roots, then the salt can build up and burn them if you are uncareful. Rainwater or distilled water with a small diluted amount of fertilizer applied weekly are preferable. Alright, in this video we introduced a variety of pots suitable for growing orchids and different methods of growing orchids. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. If you like this video, please thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks for watching and see you next time.